The modern toilet feels so ordinary that its real achievement is almost invisible. You sit down, flush, and a dangerous biological problem disappears behind a wall. But for most of human history, waste did not disappear. It stayed nearby, leaked into streets, contaminated water, attracted insects, and helped cities become perfect machines for spreading disease. The toilet itself was only part of the solution. The real breakthrough was building an entire hidden system beneath civilization. And one of the strangest turning points came when London became so unbearably foul that even Parliament could no longer ignore what was flowing outside its windows. Long before modern plumbing, people were already experimenting with sanitation. Ancient civilizations built drains, latrines, and surprisingly sophisticated water systems. The Romans famously constructed public toilets where people sat side by side over channels carrying waste away. Privacy was limited. Engineering ambition was not. But after the Roman world fragmented in Western Europe, sanitation became much less consistent. Medieval towns often depended on cesspits, privies, gutters, and manual waste collection. Human waste might be stored beneath houses, dumped into pits, or removed by workers. Growing cities made everything harder. More people meant more waste, concentrated in less space. By the early modern period, inventors were trying to improve the toilet itself. In 1596, Sir John Harrington described a flushing toilet design in England. It could use water to move waste away from the bowl. Clever idea. Terrible timing. A flushing toilet is much less useful when a city has nowhere safe to send the flush. That distinction matters. People often imagine sanitation history as a straight line from chamber pot to toilet. It was actually a battle between individual convenience and public infrastructure. By the 19th century, industrial cities were expanding at breathtaking speed. London became one of the largest cities on Earth. Houses multiplied. Factories multiplied. Waste multiplied with them. Many homes still used cesspools. These were pits designed to collect sewage. Workers periodically emptied them, sometimes selling the material for agricultural use. Then flushing toilets became increasingly fashionable among people who could afford them. This created an unexpected problem. More water entered the waste system. Cesspools filled faster, sewage overflowed, and much of it ended up in drains that ultimately carried pollution toward the River Thames. The shiny new toilet could make one house cleaner while helping make the city dirtier. That is one of sanitation history's great ironies. Meanwhile, London was repeatedly struck by cholera. At the time, many influential officials believed diseases such as cholera spread through miasma, meaning poisonous or foul-smelling air. The theory was wrong, but the smell was absolutely real. In 1854, physician John Snow investigated a deadly cholera outbreak in Soho. He famously connected many cases with water from the Broad Street pump. His work strengthened the argument that cholera was associated with contaminated water, although acceptance of the waterborne explanation was not immediate. Then nature delivered a political demonstration nobody could ignore. The summer of 1858 was unusually hot. The Thames was loaded with sewage and other pollution. Heat intensified the odor. Londoners had already endured filthy conditions, but this episode became legendary. Newspapers called it the Great Stink. The smell reached the Houses of Parliament, which stood beside the Thames. Curtains were reportedly treated with disinfecting chemicals in an attempt to block the odor. Imagine being one of the most powerful lawmakers in the British Empire, discussing national affairs while the river outside effectively says, "We need to talk." Suddenly, sewage was no longer somebody else's neighborhood problem. Parliament acted quickly. Engineer Joseph Bazalgette became central to the transformation that followed. As chief engineer of London's Metropolitan Board of Works, he designed a massive sewer network intended to intercept sewage before it entered the Thames in the heart of the city. Instead of allowing countless drains to discharge directly into central London's river, huge intercepting sewers collected the flow and carried it farther east. This was not a small construction project. It involved miles upon miles of sewers, pumping stations, embankments, underground tunnels, and enormous quantities of brickwork. And Bazalgette planned for the future. He reportedly designed major components with extra capacity, helping the system cope with a growing population far beyond what might otherwise have been possible. London did not become perfectly clean overnight. pollution remained a serious problem. Sanitation continued evolving for decades. But the new sewer infrastructure dramatically changed the relationship between the city and its waste. Then came the scientific payoff. As researchers established that cholera was transmitted through contaminated water, sanitation systems gained an even stronger medical foundation. Keeping human waste away from drinking water was not merely about eliminating disgusting smells. It could prevent disease. That idea helped transform cities around the world. Across the Atlantic, American cities faced their own sanitation problems. Rapid urbanization created overcrowded neighborhoods, contaminated wells, overflowing privies, and polluted waterways. Cities including New York, Boston, Chicago, and others gradually expanded sewer and water networks during the 19th and early 20th centuries. But installing pipes was only one part of the transformation. Cities needed reliable water supplies. They needed sewer networks. They needed treatment systems. They needed plumbing standards. They needed toilets that ordinary households could use safely. And they needed governments willing to spend enormous amounts of money on infrastructure most citizens would rarely see. The modern toilet evolved alongside these systems. One especially important improvement was the water trap, the curved section of pipe that keeps a small amount of water between your bathroom and the sewer. Without that barrier, sewer gases could travel directly back into buildings. This is why the familiar curved pipe beneath a sink is not decorative plumbing yoga. It performs a basic sanitary function. By the 20th century, indoor plumbing became increasingly common in American homes, although access remained unequal for a long time, especially between wealthy and poor households, and between urban and rural communities. Eventually, running water, sewer connections, wastewater treatment, and standardized bathrooms became expected features of modern life. And that expectation changed behavior. Think about what your toilet does in seconds. It separates you from human waste. It uses water to transport that waste away. It connects your home to a network designed to prevent sewage from returning. That network carries waste toward systems intended to treat it before releasing water back into the environment. The ceramic bowl is just the visible interface. The real invention is the network. That is why the modern toilet became indispensable. Not because humans suddenly became more embarrassed about bodily functions. Not because someone invented one magical porcelain device. It became indispensable because dense modern cities cannot safely function when millions of people simply leave their waste nearby. The story begins with an ordinary human problem and ends with one of civilization's largest invisible achievements. Every flush connects your bathroom to centuries of engineering, epidemics, political arguments, scientific discoveries, and public investment. The Great Stink of 1858 is especially memorable because the lesson was almost painfully literal. London had tolerated a sanitation crisis for years. Then the consequences reached the windows of power. And once the problem became impossible to ignore, infrastructure moved from unpleasant expense to urgent necessity. So the next time you use a toilet, the remarkable part is not that water spins around a bowl. It is that you can press one lever and safely forget what happens next. Modern civilization works because someone else, somewhere, designed the part you never have to think about.